Formula 1 races in 2020 are a bit like London buses. You wait for 3 months for one to turn up, and two turn up simultaneously. And so it was when F1, following its season opener in Austria, then hauled the entire paddock over to the next round in Austria again. But with a circuit like the Red Bull Ring, maybe that's not such a bad thing. But aside from Mercedes' dominance in the Styrian Grand Prix, the big tech talking point was over at the Red Team, as Ferrari sought to fix its poor form at the start of the year. There was also the small matter of a protest against Racing Point looking too similar to a Mercedes or something like that, but we'll cross that bridge in a moment. Even though Charles Leclerc bagged second place for Ferrari at the season opener, that was largely against the run of play. Having planned a big update for Hungary then, Ferrari fast-tracks two developments for the second Austria race, attempting to stick some extra performance on the car at short notice. New front wing and floor was available for round 2, to try and jumpstart the team's fortunes. Let's take a look at them, in glorious Technicolor, and explain what Ferrari brought to the circuit. On the front wing, Ferrari rolled back on the square footplate tunnel it pioneered last year, and had reverted to a rounder geometry. By flattening out the rear section further on the new wing, this allows a much more pronounced fin to be placed on top of the footplate. The lip at the trailing edge remains the same, to trip the airflow upwards and outwards. Compared to the old design, the new arrangement has wing elements with a much more gradual transition to the end plate, with a reduced amount of twist. Although Ferrari had pioneered last year with its wing design, it has taken a more Mercedes-like approach to the overall shape of the wing, in a bid to improve front-end downforce. The team also had a brand new floor, ditching some of the longitudinal slots along the edge for a series of diagonally cut holes. Positioned ahead of the front tyre, these are used to improve the outward release of airflow to keep turbulent air out of the floor. But arguably, Ferrari's biggest problem is in the engine department, particularly following the release of FIA's technical directives at the tail end of last year. It's been alleged that Ferrari used the fuel flow meter's measurement intervals to time filling the engine with more fuel than the 100 kg/h fuel flow rate allowed, meaning that the team can derive much more power from the engine. The FIA has now added a second fuel flow meter to all cars, with encrypted data transmission to ensure that teams cannot second guess a second set of intervals. But I hear you ask, did Ferrari's updates work? The jury's kind of still out on that one, as a lap 1 crash between Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel ended the team's Styrian Grand Prix in just mere minutes. So obviously it's difficult to tell whether the new wing works once it's lodged in the back of your teammate's car, and it's also difficult to tell if the floor works when it's been shredded to pieces. So it's back to plan A for Ferrari, where the team will have to wait until the Hungarian Grand Prix to find out where it stands. But arguably it's not all doom and gloom. Having tried the updates on Friday prior to Saturday's washout, Sebastian Vettel was slightly buoyed by the new additions to the car. The 4-time champion suggested that it seems to be positive. He said, "I think we still need to have a look and now find the best window where the car is happiest. I think it felt a lot better already today." He went on to say after practice, "All day it was straight away a different car, and then I was just able to get at it. It's not really possible to compare the two because there was such a big difference, but obviously now I hope it stays like this." Collisions aside, the updates do promise to give Ferrari a little bit more performance, but the true litmus test will be next weekend. The Hungaroring circuit is less engine critical too, owing to its tight and technical nature. Whether that means the Ferrari power unit deficit can be masked somewhat by the circuit in Hungary is anyone's guess, but the team needs those upgrades to work. As it stands, Ferrari is 5th in the Constructors' Championship and has less than a quarter of Mercedes' current 2020 haul. What a difference a year makes. Elsewhere, presumably to the disdain of people who don't like sport and politics to mix, Renault formally launched a protest against Racing Point's RP20, which had already been controversial thanks to its similarities to last year's Mercedes W10. In particular, Renault alleged that Racing Point's brake ducts were not of their own design, and bore too much similarity to Mercedes ducts. At the start of the year, brake ducts became a listed part, which means that teams have to design them themselves. This goes against F1's previous ruling, where teams could buy them in from others. Haas had previously done this, buying them in from Ferrari, but have now had to build their own for 2020. There are some small detail differences between the Racing Point and Mercedes brake ducts. but certainly one can make a case that outwardly, Racing Point has mimicked the style in the same manner that any other team would do when developing new parts. But Renault feels that there's more than meets the eye, and wants the FIA to investigate the internals to ensure that the design has been produced in its entirety by Racing Point. Racing Point meanwhile feels that everything it has done has been approved by the FIA, and there have been cases in the past where allegations of copying have been thrown out. For example, Ligier was accused of copying Benetton's car in 1995, and Sauber accused of copying Ferrari's old car in 2004, but neither car was declared unlawful. The FIA have said that the case is admissible, and has set a date under the Hungarian Grand Prix to review it.